I love the first Mount and Blade to bits, particularly Viking Conquest, where I could live out my fantasies of being a ruthless, matriarchal Norse warlord, and Napoleonic Wars, which I spent a majority of my time playing, blasting out beats on the drums to goad people in deathmatch games into protecting me instead of killing me. There aren't any playable instruments in Bannerlord yet, but it's managed to suck me into its world in my first 10 hours of playing, way more than the other game and all its DLC managed to in about 40 or 50 hours. This is the first Mount and Blade where I've paid attention to the story, which there will be no spoilers for in this video, by the way. But I've been at the game for, as I said, 10 hours now, so I wanted to tell you all about what I think. In 3 words or less, I'd describe Bannerlord so far as buggy but brilliant, though it's definitely skewing closer to brilliant for me right now. Let's talk about why. Everyone playing Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord is typically referring to it as Mount and Blade Bannerlord or simply Bannerlord. While it's got a number 2 in the title, this is more of a sequel to the original Mount and Blade spin-off DLC Warband than it is of the original. In a lot of ways, Bannerlord is exactly like Warband, but more up-to-date. For starters, everything more or less controls in exactly the same way. You click and drag to attack or block in one of 4 directions. You command your army using a slightly clunky combination of the F keys. For those of you who have seen that mod with voice command functionality, stay tuned. And when you're navigating the map, you click where you want to go and double click to go there faster. Blocking is slightly different though. In Warband you used to simply raise your shield in front of you. In Bannerlord you can change the direction of this shield block, and it's still much easier to fend off blows with a shield, and the bigger yours is the more protection it'll afford, but picking a direction gives you that little bit more control. You can still, like I've been doing, move the camera so that your shield lines up with enemy attacks because all of the weapons are still contact based in their damage output, but now you can do this to the side of your body, shielding yourself from one prick's axe swings while you stab another guy in the guts. Map navigation though is largely the same. There's just one little detail that really bugs me, and it's to do with when you're escorting trading caravans. In Warband, I could right click on a unit on the map and set to automatically pursue that unit. In Bannerlord, no such option exists yet, or if it does, Tale Worlds have made it so esoteric to do that neither I nor anyone else at RPS can figure out how to do it. So in order to accompany a caravan to its often distant destinations, I have to frantically click about the place and accelerate my development of repetitive strain injury. Please get on that one, Tale Worlds. There has always been a home in Mount and Blade for the economics nerds out there. Different settlements specialise in producing different things. Cities can have differing trading laws that can impact the price and scarcity of certain goods. Vying kingdoms in the world have different kinds of equipment on offer, and if you play this all right, you can make big bucks. As you're wondering about the realm of Calradia, you'll run into various merchant caravans from all of the world's factions. Not only can you trade goods with them, but you can also ask them for trading rumours, like where you can sell butter for lots of cash or get a bargain on loads of grain. When you're in your inventory or in a trading menu, hovering over those items will tell you about some of the trading rumours you've heard about them to help you make an informed purchasing or selling decision. As well as that, you'll notice some price listings are in white, some are in green, and some in red. If it's just white, that means the price of whatever it is you're looking at is about standard per the market. If it's green, it's cheaper than usual, and if it's red, more expensive. Hovering over that price with your mouse will give you a percentage estimate of how much cheaper or pricier it is than average. All of this together makes the trading game in Bannerlord not only very accessible and approachable for newcomers, but even more viable than before as a means of generating income to keep your troops well fed. That economy spills into the world too. Some settlements you visit will be home to merchants who are displeased with how expensive raw resources are where they live, and because trading laws preventing them from buying them in somewhere else, you find yourself taking on the slightly illegal task of finding, say, iron ore for a blacksmith for cheaper. This aspect of Bannerlord is really what makes its economy feel that bit more tangible. It took me about 8 hours before I actually opened the smithy, a menu option whenever you visit a major settlement in Bannerlord. As soon as I did, I was racking my brain over why I didn't sooner. In the smithy, not only can you refine raw materials like hardwood into charcoal, iron ore into crude iron into wrought iron, and so on, but you can also smelt down any surplus weapons you own to gain more of those raw materials and learn about different sword, axe and polearm components which you can use to forge your own meticulously personalised weapons. There are a vast range of different handles, pommels, blades, crossguards, flanges, spiky bits, grip styles, axe heads, and so on, which you, over time and depending on your smithing level, will learn how to forge and can slap together to make something of your own. Want the finest reinforced wooden shaft to be tipped with a great big sickle blade? Sure thing. What about a flimsy stick that looks like you ripped it off a dying tree that morning, but with a decorated steel arming sword blade? That too can be yours. You can even adjust the size of each of those components for even more fine tuning. If you prefer swords with a longer blade but can't find one with a particular kind of handle without it being dinky, you can put it together with the right skills and resources. Is that hammerhead just too damn small? Bump the slider up as high as it will go. These tweaks will add difficulty to the smithing process, though how that difficulty impacts your ability to make certain weapons is currently unclear to me. About as unclear as the future where I actually have any of these f***ing components unlocked. You see, levelling up in Bannerlord takes absolutely ages. Not just smithing either. Every skill I possess takes so long to level up that in order to spend even the shortest amount of time needed to progress my character, I'm gonna have to need some sort of cataclysmic worldwide crisis that requires me to stay indoors at all hours. Oh no! I'm no stranger to how much time everything takes in the Mount and Blade games. Travelling between settlements takes days, resting to heal up after a savage battle takes days, waiting for a nearby arena to have a tournament going on takes days, sitting around waiting while a gang leader you're helping gathers troop for a turf war takes days, 3 days to be exact, but the difference is with all of this waiting, those days are in-game. With all of the waiting for your skills to level up, not only is it not really waiting because you have to actually do all of the things, but it also takes, in real life days. At a conservative estimate, I've smelted about 200 weapons and produced at least 15,000 ingots of iron. I'm still, after all that, only a level 22 smelter or so. You might think level 22 sounds pretty good, but every skill in Bannerlord has a level cap of 275, so you can see how it feels like things are moving at a snail's pace. Now, that might actually sound like a lot of fun to you. Theoretically, the idea of a game that you can put that much time into and still gain the satisfaction of unlocking more stuff and learning new things sounds like a lot of fun for me too, but not everybody has all the time in the world. Some people work long hours, others have kids to look after, and I have more video games that I need to play. There are ways of levelling up certain skills faster. Every time you level up your character, you'll gain focus points, which you can use to increase the cap on how much you can advance certain skills. You also gain attribute points for every 3 level ups you go through, which you can put into your attributes, each of which governs 3 of its own skills, to speed up the rate at which you learn more about those skills. I've maxed out my focus points on one-handed, and my vigour is at 4, so my learning rate has an 8 times multiplier, for example. It seems like my skills are probably going to level up exponentially faster the further through the game that I get, so it's entirely possible that my opinion changes by the time we roll around to a more comprehensive review. But at this stage, I thought it's something important to mention because this feeling like I'm not making much progress could be a barrier for other people with even less time on their hands. That isn't the only wall that I've smashed into in my time with Bannerlord. There are also a lot of mechanics, some of which are almost essential, which are bereft of any explanation. Chris Bratt from People Make Games made a Bannerlord beginner's tips video for us, which you can watch by clicking the card in the corner, explaining some of the things that make the game much easier, but that aren't explicitly told to you. That price mechanic I mentioned earlier with the different colours denoting how over or underpriced something is, didn't know that until I watched Chris's vid. I also didn't know that double tapping W or S while mounted on a horse will, respectively, burst you into a forward charge that puts you at your top speed in a third of the time, and slows you down to halt equally as fast. That's not all when it comes to horses though. If you're using a polearm and you're trying to lance foot soldiers, riding up and clicking doesn't deal a huge amount of damage, and it can be difficult to get your aim right. Turns out, Once you've picked up speed, you can press X to change the weapon function, which will lower your polearm closer to the ground, and you'll do absolute gangbusters more damage to your targets, and have an easier time hitting them too. Wish I'd bloody well known, Christ. One of Chris's tips to avoid hideouts, because dying in them would disband your entire army, no matter how big it was, has fortunately been patched in the most recent update at time of recording. There are more really helpful tips like that in Chris's video though, so if you're just starting out and want advice, please do give it a watch. Everyone always goes on about how Mount and Blade, and therefore Bannerlord, is meant to immerse you in a grounded medieval fantasy world with all the plotting, intrigue and ultra-violence you'd expect from the period. I have no bloody idea what any of these people are on about, because in my best estimation, Bannerlord is actually a migration period fashion-flexing simulation game. Sure, swinging your axe about, sieging castles and manipulating the economy are all things you can do in Bannerlord, but none of them are as important as looking better than the opposing force's general, and with a vast range of dresses, tunics, gambesons, vambraces, gloves, boots, hats, helmets, coifs, scarves, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. Going about performing that task couldn't be easier. Aside from quite a few of the shoulder pieces looking way too oversized for my character, almost every clothing and armour component not only looks pretty cool, but it also fits nicely with the other components, even across the different factional styles. Here I have Norse-plated gloves and boots, and an Imperial chain and gambeson. Turns out the aesthetics of the Vikings and the Holy Roman Empire kind of gel together quite nicely. My only teensy-weensy gripe is because I played this game as Mount and Blade Fashion Lord, I find myself having to and ah between a helmet or a hat that looks good and a helmet or hat that's mechanically good. And you know I'm always going to go for the hat that looks good, so I end up sacrificing protection for aesthetics. Maybe an MMO vanity slot? Or no, you kind of need to see what other people are wearing for tactical reasons. Okay, yeah, no, this is just something I'm going to have to deal with. Mount and Blade Bannerlord may be out, but it's definitely not finished. The game's currently in early access, so some features are a little bit rough around the edges, like the voice acting, which I encountered for the first time around 10 hours into the game. Some are too early for Tale Worlds to feel comfortable making entirely accessible yet, like the crossbow, which there's only one kind of, and it will cost you 20 grand wherever you buy it from, and some things are just outright hilariously buggy. Let me walk you through 3 examples, one annoying one sandwiched between 2 grand ones, like how you're meant to give feedback to young kids. One time I walked into a beautifully lit and atmospheric castle keep, walked up to a soldier and had a chat with him. I had the option of asking him to tell me about himself, at which point he agreed, said he'd tell me everything there is to know about him, and then, after a pause of silence, oh, maybe it's not a bug, maybe it just has poor self-esteem. The capture broke because of it, but en route to a settlement I stopped by a village to pick up some grain because my troops were hangry, and using the item slider to transfer stuff over to my inventory crashed the game when I'd move everything over. Presumably the villagers were misadvertising how much grain they actually had, and when the gig was up, Tale Worlds did them a solid by exploding everything to cover it up. Then there's the Northern Sloven leather. Bannerlord has got some growing problems in a couple of places, but given Tale Worlds have gone indie and are publishing this entry in the Mount and Blade series themselves, I think they can be forgiven in a lot of ways, particularly with the game still being in development. It's already quite an engrossing experience with pretty much everything you'd want if you're a fan of the series, and all the while being really quite an approachable game for newcomers. My gripes with it so far are subject to change too, and I suspect that after looking into it online, it's all stuff that Tale Worlds are working on, so we're just going to have to wait here a while. If you found this video helpful in giving you a glance of where I am with Bannerlord and where it's at as a game so far, then please do give it a like, and subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun while you're down there. If you scroll a little bit further, you can leave a comment telling us about what you thought, your opinions on Bannerlord and Mount and Blade generally, or feel free to give me any tips for stuff you reckon I could do with knowing. Cheers very much for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.